Hi, this is Jessica, the Enneagram Life Coach, and today I'm going to do a video about what activates or triggers all of the 9 types. And I'm also going to mention what ego function is being triggered and maybe a response to that trigger. So I guess we'll start with body types today. 8, 9, and 1 are our body types. And if you remember from previous videos, body types are what we call anger types. They all have a sense that justice isn't being brought about in the world and their autonomy is being jeopardized. So they each respond to this differently, but that overall feeling makes them angry, whether or not they're aware of it. So type 8. Something that will really trigger an 8 and set them off is if they are moving towards a goal. And 8s are very, very forward thinking. And so 8s might have a goal, and in their mind, they're already like on step 27 of their goal, right? So if on step 3, somebody who has some sort of authority regarding their goal tells them it can't be done, or they're not allowed to do it that way, or they need to come up with a different plan, that will really frustrate the 8, because in the 8's mind, they're already so past this one place where this, wherever it's getting stopped. And it'll feel trivial to them, like this person is like an idiot because this person can't see the big picture. And that's often very true, that the other people can't see the big, crazy, wild visions that 8s have. I mean, that's not a false statement, but because 8s are so forward thinking and so confident and so maybe forceful in their approach, that's really frustrating to them when a peon, let's say, who has some sort of authority can frustrate their plans. The ego part that's being like activated there is this idea. 8s just have a sense that they can do anything, that they're unstoppable, right? So that's kind of like a reality check, right? When they get stopped. Now they won't, if they're still in their 8 space, and we can all go to 8 space. Okay. I don't mean you don't have to be an actual type 8 to have this experience. I'm actually speaking from my own experience as I share this because I'm a 7 and I have an 8 wing, but until the 8 learns how their ego is functioning, they won't realize that this is what's happening, that it's their sense of unstoppability, their big heroic energy that they feel is just literally unstoppable. When that gets challenged, that will activate them. The way through, or one response to that for an 8, when you see yourself in a situation like this, is to recognize that you are a visionary. You have amazing plans for the future. You probably will be able to do the big thing. And it won't be as, there obviously are going to be obstacles in the way. And 8 does know that. I mean, 8's used to working through obstacles, but just take a breath, 8. Maybe engage your heart, maybe make sure that in your anger, you don't offend or hurt people or belittle people or do something ugly. That's not cool. And just kind of go back to the drawing board and calmly, maybe be receptive, right? That's like the healing movement for 8s, rather than pushing, is to be receptive. Maybe hear the input that the person or the entity that is stopping you is providing. Consider it. Maybe they have something reasonable. Maybe there's a reason they're not letting you do the thing the way you wanted to do it. And maybe it's a good reason. Other people have good ideas too. So that's for the 8. Okay, let's go to the 9. Now 9s get really activated if they feel like they are being made to take a side. 9s are our harmonizers, they're our peacemakers, and they really don't want to cause any issues ever, and they don't want to be forced to do anything, right? They kind of are like they're like oak trees, right? And they don't like being pushed. They can be very stubborn. And so if they get into a situation where they feel like they're being pushed to decide between maybe 2 loved ones, or at work between 2 options, that really upsets them. I would say the ego apparatus that's being annoyed there is that nines like to see themselves as peaceful and never making waves. And of course, in this world, we cannot live in this world and never make waves, right? It's just impossible without totally tapping out, which is the sloth that the nine can slip into if they're not careful. So being awake, being present in this world will require that you sometimes take a stand on one side or the other. And also, nines, you see things from a great perspective. You have, because you are so receptive and because you are so kind and gentle, you do see things from every angle. And it is still worth, as you make your decision, you voicing how you're seeing both sides, because it's also very likely that you have wisdom to add to the topic at hand, that the other contenders didn't even think of. But then when and as you add your wisdom, then, deliver which side you're going to be on and why it is that your wisdom has led you to that side. And that's how you use your voice and stay active and present. All right, type ones. Type ones are probably, maybe with the exception of sixes, but they are very, very hard on themselves. And unlike sixes, they are hard on themselves in an integrity way, setting really, really high standards for themselves, and then being really aggravated, frustrated, those are all anger words, at themselves for not having met the impossible standards that they set for themselves. So high five to ones, first of all, for setting such high standards. I know the rest of us aren't doing that. So kudos to you for trying to be excellent in all things and really doing your best to be above, above average in all of the things and doing everything perfectly or flawlessly or seamlessly. And that's not the world we live in, right? So we love that you're setting high goals for yourselves. We love that you're holding us responsible or being a beacon of light and example for all of us. And you're not going to get it right all of the time. Nobody does. That's an impossible standard. And of course, the ego function that's being triggered there is something like, I am worthless if I'm not perfect, or if I will be a bad person if I don't show up with complete flawlessness every single time. And that's just not true. It doesn't put you in the bad camp just because you make a mistake. Mistakes are okay. So one response to that for a one would be, of course, to pray, to get centered, to recognize you tried your best, you aimed and you missed. That's all right. That happens. That's part of human. Aim again and take another stab at it. And maybe lower the bar a little bit. And I know you're like, oh, lower the bar. But, when we're setting goals for ourselves, any person, doesn't matter what your Enneagram type is, as a general rule, if every time you hit the goal, like 100% dead on, every time you set a goal for yourself, you hit it, you're probably not aiming high enough. But ones have the opposite problem. If you are regularly falling short of your goals, then you're aiming too high. You want an optimal level there of aim. And so I think it's really helpful for ones to realize if your standard is flawless, no mistakes every single time, then you're going to have to lower the bar, or you're going to make yourself crazy, right? Because that's not reasonable. Okay, let's go to heart types now. Type 2. Twos, all heart types, just to recap, are looking to be loved. Okay, it's a relational stance. They are understanding themselves in this world based on how they're reading other people or understanding them, and they are trying to create an image that will feel lovable because they don't feel inherently lovable or admirable as they are. Maybe worthy is another good word there. So twos get their worth by helping and by serving and by bringing gifts and support. And that's really helpful. And we love that they do that. And they're great at it. And they're very good at empathizing and reading what people need and delivering that. But what will really frustrate a two, and frustrate here, that's an anger word. Maybe even a word could be make a two very sad, because now we're into sad types. The heart types feel sadness and like rejection and shame. And what can make a 2 feel really shameful is if there's some kind of situation that they don't have anything to give, or they've been told don't bring anything, or we don't want your input or your services here. We still want you to participate, but we don't want your services. That can make a 2 feel rejected. Right? 2s often feel rejected, not because they inherently are rejected, but because that's just their come from, is that if they do not give something, if they're not always the cheerful, happy one, they will be rejected. And so if there's a situation where they're not able, in their perspective, to give something, that can make them feel like, oh my gosh, if I show up empty-handed, I'm definitely going to be rejected. The ego function there, of course, pride is the sin at point 2. And what's happening there is 2s can have the sense that they can have a puffed up sense of self, that they are more important than they are, or their role in this situation is more important than it is. And that's subconscious, of course. They're definitely not doing that on purpose. But when you take away their gifts, you sort of highlight, to them, it maybe feels like you're highlighting their lack, right? Because their gifts are what sort of props up their pride. So when you take that away, the humility that they're left with, it can be unbearable, and that can really be activating for a 2. So the way through, of course, for a 2 is to recognize that everybody is actually of the same value. There is no human being that is worth more or less any other human being, including you. And you are already loved, and you are already admired and accepted in the circles who know you and who care about you. And we're not asking you to bring something every single time. We're not asking that you contribute every single time. It's very darling that you are so dialed into that, but we don't need that 100% of the time. Okay, type 3. Now 3s, even though they're heart-centered people, right, they're trying to win, they're trying to be outstanding, they're trying to also set an example to people and be the best of the best. They're competing all the time, right? When it comes to 3, it seems like everything is a competition. And so what can really trigger a 3 is if they feel like they're losing the competition. If they feel like they're not in first place and other people are going to see that, that's hugely embarrassing to them. It's shameful, right? It activates their shame. And the ego function that's being challenged there is this idea that they have to win all the time, or even that they do win all the time, right? Part of their story is that they're always a winner. And that's not true. That's not possible. Again, nobody is always a winner. And so, the deceit at point 3, it will sometimes make them present themselves as the winner, or present themselves as the best or the most qualified, when they're actually not. And sometimes they might even know that, right? It's a fit, or present themselves as something other than what they are, right? They go to, I don't know, just they go somewhere and they believe that the group of people in that room wants them to be a certain way, or that group of people has something in common. The 3 will often pretend like they also have that in common. That's the deceit. So it's very triggering for a 3 if they feel like they are not the winner in the context that they are in, that they find themselves in. But one response could be to remind 3s, we're not all competing like you are. And frankly, I know this might hurt, but even when you're winning, a lot of times the rest of us aren't even noticing. Because and it's not because we don't love you, because we do love you. We already love you, first of all. So we're not saying, oh, I don't love you because you're not winning. We're saying you're playing all these races and having all these contests in your head, and the rest of us aren't doing that. So maybe just rest in knowing that the people who love you already love you. Whether or not you win, you don't have to pretend like you're something you're not to win affection. Type 4s. 4s will be really activated when they feel like life is too boring, or not elegant enough, or not lovely enough, or not beautiful enough, or not ideal. And as an ideal type myself, I feel that. I know It is incredibly heartbreaking, right? We'll stay in heart space for a 4 when the world isn't as it should be, or more specifically for 4, when people are letting you down, or where you have the sense that people are letting you down, or that people don't see you for who you are. It's something like that at 4. People aren't recognizing your who you are, and on a deeper level, people don't see your soul. And of course, what's being triggered there is 4s, that image they are trying to fabricate subconsciously, of course, is one of complete uniqueness, and uniqueness in victimization. It's like, I am such a victim that I am unique. Please see my suffering, and then you will love me. And the envy there, the sin of 4 is envy, and it's like all these other people have it some other way, but me here in my story, this is the way I have it. And it's so hopeless. It's like hopeless, right, for 4, when that's the way they feel in these places, and that's how they get activated. But again, I want to remind you, we're all victims. You're right to say you're a victim, totally true, and we're all victims. And so the way through is to recognize that even though it seems like these people are letting you down and they are overlooking you, again, they're not in that story that's your story. They don't even know about that story. The people who love you don't even know that's what you're hoping to get from them. And even though I'm sure you voice, I want you to see me and hear me and feel me, they don't know what you mean. They don't speak that language. So in that sense, you are unique. In the sense that they're not all playing that game, and that's why they're not giving you what you want, not because they don't love you or you're not important to them, but because they're just not aware that that's what's going on. So the way through is gratitude for how they do love you. Whoever you believe lets you down and is too average, or whatever relationship you're in, or whether it's your job or your friends or your partner, what is good about that? Gratitude is what helps the 4 overcome the overwhelming sense of envy and hatred and anger that gets fueled by that. All right, and then lastly, let's get into head types 5, 6, and 7. These types are very security oriented, and it feels to them like this world is a place where you can strategize and use intellect and logic. And if you do that, you will finally be safe, because the world feels very scary, and that makes types 5, 6, and 7 fearful. And so their egos respond to that fear in different ways. And when it comes to point 5, what really activates a 5 and really stresses them out is when they feel like the world is demanding too much from them, whether it's their friends or their family or their job or their commitments or their schooling or their HOA or whatever it is. It's like, oh my gosh, all of these people want so much from me, and I just can't give them what they need. There's an avarice that happens at 5, right? That's the sin. It's, I'm going to hoard up what I do have because these people are sucking me dry. They're taking away every last ounce of energy and strength and zhuzh that I have, and I'm just this depleted, shell of a human because these people are infringing on me. It's a constant feeling of people just in your space, taking your autonomy, or trying to take your autonomy, right? But 5 is determined and like hellbound to like lock themselves in a hideaway so these people can't get to them. What's being triggered there is this sense of catastrophic depletion that 5s have, that people are intruding on them all the time. It feels like the world, any situation, you name it, a 5 feels intruded on, because that's just how the ego of the 5 works. So of course, the way through point 5 is to remember, or any of us at point 5, you don't have to be a 5 to have this feeling of catastrophic depletion. But the point through is to remember that every day we are replenished. Every day, God provides new resources, new energy, new breath, new life, new sunlight, right? The plants make their food in real time as the sun is shining. They don't worry about what's going to happen next week, or if they're going to run out of energy, because that's just not how it happens, right? The sun rises and the sun sets. And as that happens, we are replenished. there's a verse that says, as you send out your spirit and just new life is born. You send out your spirit and it replenishes all of the earth. Okay, type sixes. Sixes are also fear types, and also part of the way sixes deal with their fear is they see the world in like a community context, and they think of themselves as, when they are part of a community or part of a team or part of a family or part of a group, then they feel secure and safe. And the world they live in puts people not only in that community, which is a great thing actually, because they're great friends and loyalists, and they want all of us together, and they want everybody to be a happy team. But in that framework, sometimes they can take a wrong turn and assume that they know everybody's role in that framework. And then it seems to the six that they are the responsible ones who are pulling their own weight or doing whatever they need to be doing, whatever is theirs to do in that community. They feel like they're doing it, but the other people aren't. And you'll hear sixes talk about what's not fair, and in their families, how it wasn't fair, how their parents, treated their siblings differently, or how their spouse doesn't treat them right, or how, their boss doesn't see what they do and sees what other people do, but doesn't see what they do. There's and that really frustrates them. And also it activates their fear, because once they feel like, any of us, if the world isn't manifesting the way our structure believes it should, that makes us feel unstable, it makes us confused. And to a six, especially looking for certainty, when they feel confused about who's not doing the role they should be doing, that really aggravates them. So that's how their ego is being triggered, is they see the world sort of in a group context, and when they believe that other people in the group aren't doing their assignment in the group, and of course the six is always doing their assignment by their own estimation, but when everybody else isn't, that makes the six really, really mad and really scared. Actually, truth be told, they're scared, but it could come across as anger. I would say one response to that is, first of all, for sixes to remember we're not all in that community context. Actually, most of us are not living in a community context. That's your context. That's not our context. And while it's really great that you encourage that, because we definitely do, humans do need communities, and that is a helpful way of functioning for humans, it's not the only way of functioning for humans. So when the other humans who are in your little imaginary communities aren't doing the roles that you have assigned them to do, it's helpful for you to recognize that was your story. That was and I know you'll say, no, at work, that's not the case. We're supposed to be doing, I know. But just remember, the way you're doing it isn't the way everybody else is doing it. And that's why it feels like they're all doing it wrong. What if they are doing other things for the community that you're not aware of? And I know then the six goes, no, I know they don't do it. I promise you, they are doing other things in other capacities, because they are all reflections of the divine, just like you are. You are a reflection of the divine. And what you bring to the community context is amazing. And keep doing that for sure. But don't worry about what they're doing. You do you. And trust that they will do what they need to do when they need to do it. You don't need to be the community police. Okay, and finally, type 7. This is my type. We get really annoyed and triggered when it feels like there are limits placed on us, external limits. When it feels like I would have such a wonderful life, and I was planning on having such a wonderful day, or such a wonderful trip, or such a wonderful vacation, or I was planning on doing this work project such a great way, and then somebody came and did something that limited me, and then I feel stuck. I feel like I'm stuck in a box, and I will start acting crazy because I'm stuck. Oh my gosh, there's no way out. I'm backed into a corner. I don't have any options, right? Sevens like options. What's happening there from an ego standpoint is that sevens want to and have a compulsive need to see the world as only wonderful, good, carefree, happy, joyful, sing-song Pollyanna. And when anything interrupts that unicorn plan, which, by the way, things will all day, every day. 7 gets really triggered and then also starts blaming it on, oh, well, this thing is it's I would have such a great life if it weren't for this, or I would have had such a good time, but this happened, or I would do so good at my job if it were not for this. And that limiting factor, that story of a limiting factor, is one that the 7 replays over and over in the average health range. So the way out for 7s, one way out, is that's a part of what that is a gluttony of wanting all of the options open all the time so that I can always make a move. And 7s will tell themselves, and you'll hear a 7 say, oh, I don't ever get back to the corner because I always have like escape routes. I always have a way to make the night go my way, or the job, if it doesn't serve me, I'll do something else. And that's fine. That's part of how 7 is. That's part of their work in the world for sure. But a thought would be to, first of all, just notice when you're being triggered and then say, am I really being limited, or is this just part of life? Because chances are it's part of life. Chances are, 7, you didn't lose all your options. This isn't a catastrophe, but you might have to commit to a certain way or do it a certain way now that this whatever has happened or become clear to you. And that's okay. You can still have a great life, even with things, even with limitations, right? Some limitations are good. Discipline is a great limitation. We discipline ourselves because it gives us freedom. And also, where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty. So anytime we connect with God and we keep that connection alive, we will not be trapped without a way out. It will always be onward and upward. Guys, thanks so much for watching. Please follow my channel. Like it if you liked this video, comment, and I will see you again soon. Thanks.